Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today. Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com.
Hello and welcome once again to Trail Daddy, your not quite weekly podcast about the Portland Trailblazers, following everything in Blazers lore as they establish themselves more or less in the 2024-25 season. I am Dave Deckard, managing editor of Blazers Edge, and let's talk a little bit about your Blazers. Oh my goodness, 8-17. They are not having a great week. It's struggle bus time, and they've lost 5 in a row and 7 out of their last 8. They've lost to the Mavericks, the Clippers, the Utah Jazz in terrible fashion, 141-99, the Los Angeles Lakers, and then finally to the San Antonio Spurs, most recently, as this podcast publishes, by a couple points. And the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets are coming up, which doesn't look really hopeful. So they may be looking at a 7-game losing streak. The days when they beat the Timberwolves twice and then the Atlanta Hawks seem far off now, even though that was only a month ago. It might as well have been another season. Portland is really hurting. So let's talk about why. And we're not going to grind through each and every game. You've probably watched them. If you haven't missed too much. We'll look at the big picture here. And that's the dirty little secret, I think, that we're beginning to discover about this year's team. And it's really surprising. It's one of the last things that I ever would have guessed would happen. But you know what? Blazers don't have any guards. It looked at the beginning of the season like if there were a part of the roster that was pretty well set, not really speculative, reasonably deep, it would be the guard core. That is simply not turning out to be true. Every single backcourt player that the Blazers depend on is showing some kind of fatal flaw at the moment, and cumulatively they're breaking apart in the backcourt, which is making it really hard for them to score points, which is making it really hard for them to win games. Let's break that down a little bit, and let's start with the guy who was supposed to be at the center of all this backcourt celebration, Anthony Simons, who is in his 7th NBA season, now 25 years old, both indicating that he should be arcing up into his prime. Also, there is nobody on the food chain ahead of him, not even Jeremy Grant, who is much his veteran and more of a two-way player, but Grant is really kind of a complementary player hiding in number one option clothes. On a great team, Jeremy Grant would not be forecast to be your leading scorer nor to dominate the ball. He would score, and he might even score 20, but you're not going to put him on the marquee and you're not going to say he's the center of our team. That would be much more Simons' role with his multifaceted offense, his ability to hit three-point shots, his ability to dunk, maybe even his ability to distribute the ball, and almost none of that is happening right now, and that is a problem. Simons is shooting so far just below 41% from the floor for the season, which is a bad number even for a guard, and 32.5% from the three-point arc, which is a career low for him and below average for the NBA and below that fatal 33% line overall. It's not going down for him. His effective field goal percentage of 49.1% is his lowest since he really started getting serious minutes in the NBA in his second season. He shot or had an effective field goal percentage of 46.9 that second year of his career. 49.1 is much lower than any other year but that. At his peak, he was at 56.9, which is huge. That's when he was shooting 42, almost 43% from the three-point arc. Instead of 43%, he's shooting 32, almost 33%. That is not good. His per 36 scoring numbers are still reasonable. I mean, he's still 20-point scorer per 36, but the Blazers need more. And really, he's produced more. He had a career-high 23.6 points per 36 last year. He's not even close to that at 20.1. And a lot of that is percentage-based. I mean, granted, he is taking fewer shots. He had 19 shots per 36 last year, 17.1 shots per 36 this year. But he's taking as many three-pointers as he was. And if he were hitting at a similar rate, even to last year when he shot 38.5, that per-minute scoring number would look a lot better, as well, of course, as his aggregate scoring. But 17.1 points per game in the NBA in 2024 for a guard that's supposed to be your leading scorer, or at least has the inside track for that, is not good. That's not acceptable. I mean, good guards are scoring 21 and great guards are scoring 25. Simons at 17.1 is looking more like a small forward, a 3-and-D player, but he doesn't have the D to back that up, and the threes aren't falling, so what exactly is he doing out there? Now, his assist numbers are still okay, especially for a combo guard or a shooting guard. He's averaging 5.3 per 36. It's not as high as the 5.8 last year, but that's still way higher than the other years of his career. So I think he's taking the setup role seriously. As we keep saying, though, he's not really natural at it, and it may be messing with him, I'm beginning to suspect. Here's what I want from Anthony Simons right now. I want you to forget about setting up the offense. I want you to forget about whatever has gone on before in this season. All I need is the regular Ant back. And if that means a few more ISO plays, if that means a few more selfish shots, if that means taking some three-pointers coming straight off of screens, which I think is one of his great shots, or even some three-pointers that are step back or step sideways, I'm good with that. I think the Blazers need to get Ant back on track one way or the other if they're going to succeed, in two ways. First of all, it will be better for the team overall this year, but also if the Blazers hope to trade him, they have to have his production higher than this. I mean, opposing GMs can overlook this a little bit, but you don't trade away first-round picks, or a lot of first-round picks, especially for a guard that's shooting 32.5% from the three-point arc, scoring 17 points per game, and doesn't play great defense. That's not going to work. Now, I still think that Simons could play a C.J. McCollum role for a contender, and I think he'd step into that really well. I think he'd be a valuable piece, but it's not showing in the numbers right now, and he needs to get off the schneid, and the Blazers need to get him going. Even if that costs certain other things, I think in the short term, it's going to be worth it. As we've talked about before, I think I talked about this last podcast. I've certainly written about it. I'm not sure that Simons now ends up being the guard that the Blazers need for the future, but he can't be as bad as this. And they're certainly not going to re-sign him if his production keeps on like this. He's got this year and next year on his contract, and even at $25 million, which is not too bad for a lead guard, they can't re-sign him for $25 million at this production, and they're not going to re-sign him for a raise unless he looks a lot better. So they will think about trading him at some point. They just need to get those numbers up, and so does he, in order to be effective. That's a part of what's ailing the Blazers right now. But you know what? He is not alone. Shaden Sharp is the team's leading scorer at 17 points a game. I mean, which is, I guess, good for Shaden Sharp, but is a mixed blessing. I mean, it says something about his teammates, I suppose. Oh, I take that back. Okay, sorry. Simons eclipsed him from last night's scoring barrage. Simons is at 17.1. Sharp is now only at 17. So Simons is the leading scorer by 1/10 of a point. But you get the idea. Sharp has taken more of a lead scoring role, which absolutely he needs to do. He's another shooting guard, of course. He has more height than Simons. I think he has more defensive potential than Simons. But you know what? Sharp is disappearing out there a little bit. This is not, he's been back for 17 games now, and this is not the Shaden that we were expecting to see. And the big glaring hole in his game right now is the three-point shot, much like Simons. Sharp is shooting 28.2% from three-point land, hitting just 1.7 threes per game in 6.1 attempts. Now, 6.1 isn't obnoxious for today's NBA, but it's a lot, and hitting fewer than 2 of them hurts. Oh boy. Sharp's effective field goal percentage right now is 49.6, which is better than Simons and not too bad, primarily because Sharp really excels when he gets inside the arc. He's shooting 55.1% on attempts inside the arc, but he doesn't pull a ton of free throws. He doesn't really take a ton of shots for the amount of minutes he plays. And he's not getting inside and producing enough points in there to make that more than just, a balance to this is like the floor to the kitchen. Okay, Sharp's got a floor with this 2-point scoring. But you know what? You need an oven, and you need that oven to be on, and you need to be cooking something. And right now, the kitchen isn't furnished because of that tough 3-point percentage. And I believe that it's a chain reaction. Opposing defenses are able to play off of Sharp a little bit more easily because he's not hitting the three. He's a decent catch and shoot guy, but he's not hitting it in isolation at all. And that means with defenders sagging off, they're better able to prepare for him defensively. They're also better able to interfere with other Blazers players in the middle, including DeAndre Ayton, including on penetration from other guards. So Sharp's lack of three-point shooting is having a little bit of a chain reaction effect that is not really great for his game and not really great for the Blazers. Also, I think most of all, Sharp just isn't aggressive every night, and I'm not sure what's up. I mean, he can't control the ball, of course. The Blazers have tried to have him bring the ball up the court a few times. It generally doesn't work. He doesn't get his own shot, and he isn't able to pass real effectively. So that experiment isn't working, which means he has to trust other players to get him the ball. Scoot Henderson is a gamble. Delano Banton is going to score himself. Anthony Simons, as we said, is not a natural passer, but he's the most willing. But Simons, as we said, needs to get his own scoring going too, which means Sharp is kind of a secondary thought. And so no matter what point guard he's paired with, what he ends up doing is getting the ball in bailout situations in isolation, often on the perimeter. As we said, he's not hitting his threes, which means he has to work really hard to get those 2-pointers to fall. And gosh, okay, someone to set him up, someone to get his catch and shoot 3-pointers on a steady diet so he can get more confidence in that shot, and then having that translate into an isolation, either step back or rise up 3, to where defenses have to respect him and play up on him. That's the magic sauce right there. And then Sharp, I think, can top 20 points on a regular basis. It's just not happening right now, and the Blazers aren't getting the kind of production they need from him right now. Now, I think his defense is okay, but I don't think that he's made huge defensive strides, and I think you can tell the difference between Sharp and Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, pretty clearly. And so, I mean, that also, if he was going to make up for it, being a defensive monster would sure help. That hasn't developed yet either. Of course, Sharp is still young. He's 21 years old. He has a lot of time to grow, but it's unfortunate that you've got Anthony Simons underperforming and Shaden Sharp underperforming at the same time, because those were two of the pillars of your potential offense this year. Two of the young-ish players that you hoped would make a leap this year that so far haven't really gotten off of the launching pad. And speaking of that, who's the third guy that you have a lot of hopes for? Of course, it is Scoot Henderson, third overall pick a couple years ago. Through 18 games, Scoot is shooting 40.9% from the field, which is better than his 38.5% from last year. Yay! But he is still not exceeding Sharp and Simons, and both of them are underperforming. So what is Scoot? Also, Scoot's three-point percentage, 28.8%, down significantly from the 32.5% he shot a season ago. Now, asterisk, he shot poorly from three-point land at the beginning of the year last year and came on. But you know what? You can't take an entire season to warm up. You're supposed to take a week or two to warm up. You can't shoot horribly in the first half of the season and decently in the second half and call it good, especially when the end result is just, 32.5. That's, again, below that 33.3 line. That's the bare minimum for even beginning to think that you can shoot threes. It's really pretty bad. And, that's last year's performance. This year's performance of 28.8 is miserable. Now, Scoot is getting shots at the rim, shots closer in. He's shooting 46.7% from two-point range, which is a significant improvement over his 41.6 last year. So that at least is going okay. His effective field goal percentage is up a little bit. He's still not drawing a significant number of fouls, in fact, fewer than last year. He's still not garnering many more assists. He's at 7 just about per 36 minutes, which is where he was last year, which for, again, an NBA point guard is about average, about decent. 7 is, I would say, okay, you're at the minimum threshold to consider yourself a true point guard. However, you'd prefer 10. And if it slips any, if you get down to 6 or something, you're starting to ask, well, is this guy any better than, say, a shooting guard or a combo guard or a small forward who can also pass? I mean, there are a lot of NBA superstars who actually get 7 assists per game, who just view passing as part of their game, not even the most significant part. It's probably the best part of Scoot's game this year, besides his first step, and it's still only kind of average. Also, his turnovers aren't going down. He had 4.3 per 36 last year, 4.1 per 36 this year. Per minute, he's committing just as many turnovers. That hasn't been fixed. The type of turnovers, I think, have been fixed. There are more turnovers of commission. In other words, he's trying to make a play and it's not quite working, but he's being aggressive. That's better than the turnovers of just ludicrous, almost silliness that we saw a fair amount last year as he was adjusting to the league. So that has improved, but saying how you're messing up is better without the messing up getting better is of dubious value. And that's a little bit where Scoot is in terms of his production on the team. 11.3 points per game is down significantly from the 14 he had last season. Again, it's early in the year. He may get a lot more shots toward the end of the year to bump that up. He took just about 13 shots per game last year, only 10 this year. That accounts for part of it. But you know what? 11 points for a point guard in this league that you expect to start. I know Scoot comes off the bench, but the Blazers are clearly still hoping that Scoot ends up starting someday because he's the only dang true point guard that they have. And Simons and Sharp aren't forecast to take that role, at least not entirely. So you're hoping this guy is getting on the runway to get to a starting job and scoring 11 points and having 7 assists, or well, actually it's 5 assists per game and 2.9 turnovers per game, 7 assists per 36 and 4.1 turnovers per 36. So you're not at a 2-to-1 ratio of assists to turnovers. In fact, you're about at 5-to-3, which is really dicey. I mean, again, every assist turns into a bucket. Not all turnovers turn into opposing buckets. So you like the assist, the assists help you maybe more than the turnovers hurt you. But costing you a shot on a possession is a cardinal sin in today's NBA. It's literally, offenses are all about the number of shots that you can get up. And the more points each shot is worth, the better it is. It's like aggregate, it's fast food offense. You're not looking to be a 5-star chef team where you serve only 6 tables a night and it's gourmet food. NBA offenses now are looking to be McDonald's. You crank out as many burgers as you can, as fast as you can. Not everybody is going to like that, but in aggregate, if even 50% of your McDonald's customers like it, you've made a lot more customers happy than if 100% of that gourmet restaurant customers like it. Now, obviously, it's nicer to eat at the gourmet restaurant, just like it's nicer to see, I don't know, Michael Jordan or Kevin Durant score than it is to see a random small forward score. However, if that random small forwards team can crank out enough shots that are worth enough potential points faster than Kevin Durant does, then that small forwards team is going to win more often than Durant's does. That's the theory of the modern NBA. So, you can't turn over the ball because it takes away your opportunity to serve some of those Big Macs, right? So, it doesn't help also that Scoot goes up and down with how fast he goes. And speed down the court is part of it. When you see Scoot walking down the court, that's bad. And you see it a fair amount. It's about half and half. But also, when Scoot takes a lot of dribbles before he tries to penetrate, his game isn't as strong, and I don't think Portland's offense is as strong. On that second unit, the Blazers really need Scoot to come through. And that means following his instincts, pressing hard, being aggressive. Sometimes Scoot will take 5 or 6 dribbles out there, survey the floor, try to set something up. The offense stalls, and then he tries to drive. That's not as good as Scoot getting the ball, seeing half of an opening, and taking that opening and trying to create pressure on the defense. I think it's better overall for Scoot if he's able to pass out eventually than pass around the floor. So pass out meaning dribble, penetrate, pass the ball out, kick it out after he's gone inside. That's still not a strong part of his game, but I think that's the part he needs to develop. And in order for that to happen, he needs to get that penetration first and get it strongly. That happens sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, and that's part of Scoot's woes. So, aggregate. Let's put this together. You have 3 guards who are supposed to both set up and produce a bunch of your offense. One of those guards is shooting 28.8% from the three-point arc, another 32.5%, and another 28.2%, none of which is acceptable and a couple of which are really bad. That's a big part of Portland's woes. You have inconsistency in the play of all of those guards up and down. You have somewhere between moderate and decent defense and bad defense between the 3 of them. In other words, the hands and eyes of this team, which the guards are supposed to be, the hands are kind of numb and the eyes are kind of open and shut. And that's really inhibiting the rest of the team. And again, if you told me at the beginning that the Blazers guard core was going to suffer this much, I would have said, A, nah, probably not. At least one of them has got to prosper, right? And B, if this is true, there's going to be big trouble. And lately, big trouble is what the Blazers have been getting. I mean, the other, Delano Banton, I think I'm excited about him as a point guard at 6'9". We've talked about that before. But he also is inconsistent. At least he's shooting 37% from the three-point arc, which is a decent amount. He's still more of a scoring guard than a true point guard. But I think he's okay. And if the other three can't produce, then maybe Banton minutes or something you see more of as the season goes along. But right now, he's still a spot bench player. I guess the best thing to say about him is he's tall, he can score in droves, and he's doing better than the other three, but he's probably not going to solve your problem right now. So, I mean, hey, all things considered, the Blazers are probably lucky to be at just 8-17 with this play from what was supposed to be a deep and or strong part of their roster. The other part that the Blazers are having lately is center injuries. Robert Williams, chronically out. He's had concussion protocol before he's played only 7 games out of 25 for the Blazers. You like him when he plays. He's shooting 71% from the floor, for gosh sakes, although he only takes shots that he's capable of making, and that's why. But you like that. You like his rebounding. You like his energy. You like his attitude. He would be a really good asset for that center core, but he's simply not there. Donovan Clingan has been injured as well with his knee injury. The Blazers obviously play different defensively when he's in there. He's still not a scorer. He's still not ready to be a full-time starter, but you like the energy he brings, but he's been out as well. So you've been looking at DeAndre Ayton playing big minutes, and then you got guys like Jabari Walker or Jeremy Grant or Toumani Camara trying to defend the center position. That's just as hit or miss as the guards are. Ayton has been strong some games, and his field goal percentage remains okay, but his defense is not great. His rebounding is it's okay for what the Blazers ask of him. 10 rebounds a game is pretty great, but on paper, but the Blazers depend on their center to get at least that many because he's the one guy in the system who's in there to do it. So it's not surprising that Ayton is getting all the rebounds. Maybe he could even get a few more. Some games he looks fantastic in that department. Some games just okay. So, I mean, you look at this overall and you say Ayton is all right, but not much more than that. And when he's the only center out there, they need more than that. Or when Clingan comes back, Ayton seems to have been injured. So the Blazers are running one center out there. And it's either Clingan, who plays good defense but is limited offensively and gets a lot of fouls and can't play a lot of minutes and isn't suited to play in all ways in the starting role, or you get Ayton, who is suited to play that role but doesn't always bring it every night and doesn't play the kind of defense that Clingan does. And so you're looking at one center who is not fantastic, let's say it that way, who's at least decent but not game-changing. So you have the guard positions and you have the center positions, both of whom are really suffering. Kind of puts perspective on this NBA mantra of 3-and-D wings being everything. Maybe they're the most valuable part still, and certainly it's hard to argue that guys like Avdia and Camara and Jeremy Grant haven't been the most valuable players pound for pound and overall in aggregate. I think they have been the most valuable players for the Blazers this year, but they're not enough. And if the guards are falling apart, and if there's no consistent center play, it ain't going to work, no matter how many wonderful forwards you throw out there. And I think overall, most games, the Blazers' defense is better this year, more consistent this year than it's been in years and years. But it's just not proving to be enough because, again, those other parts are falling apart and the offense isn't producing. And it's just a chronic problem. I mean, the Blazers at 106.8 points per game are 27th in the league in offense, and they're giving up 116. So their defense, even when it's good, is having a hard time keeping opponents to 107 points a game or under. I think the NBA median is at least 110 or 112. I haven't checked it lately. Changes earlier in this season like this. But the Blazers are scoring well below the median, and even their defense now has slipped to 23rd in the league in points allowed. So, I mean, you're starting to see almost a 10-point deficit per game. That's terrible. That's really, really worst in the league. I don't want to say historically bad because it's early in the season, but finishing with a double-digit minus point differential is a sign that you are awful. And the Blazers right now are starting to drift toward awful. Now, they can turn it around. They need to get past the next couple games. As we say, Phoenix isn't a likely win. Who knows? Sometimes they pull something out of their hats, but that's not something you can bank on. And certainly Denver is not a likely win either, especially if Nikola Jokic plays. You got the Spurs on the road, who the Blazers just lost to, but maybe they can take them. But then you got the Mavericks on the road, Utah Jazz, Dallas Mavericks, Philadelphia 76ers. So you got a few potentially winnable games in there, but you're probably not looking at more than 500, and really likely you're going to be under. So it looks like this is going to slip farther before it gets better. Then you got a nasty 5-game road trip at the beginning of January, and then you got the Miami Heat, your first game home. So, oh boy, this might get really rough for the Blazers before it gets better. Now, the nice thing is, every time we said that this season, they've bounced back with unexpected wins. So let's see if they can do it again. But at some point, it feels like the arc on the upswing is getting lower and shorter and shakier, and the downswing is getting deeper. We're getting below the X line on the graph now with the sine wave. It started the season, you had highs that were relatively decent, and you had lows that were bad, but they kind of almost balanced themselves out, or at least more than they are now. Now the highs are only getting up barely above that midline, and the lows are plunging way below it. Hello, Utah, I'm looking at you. Therefore, the Blazers need to turn it around pretty soon, or here's what you're going to see probably. If we get into January or certainly February with the Blazers still playing like this, I think you're going to see some of this veteran production fall off, either because you see the team playing the veterans less and trying to develop young players and or playing capture the flag, or the veterans simply, I don't want to say give up because that's not the right word for it, but when you're not playing with a reasonable expectation of winning anymore, that you're just going out there trying to play the best game you can, but you don't feel like your teammates are supporting you. You don't feel like you're going out there and having a huge effect. That inevitably will play on you psychologically. Your game will get worse. You will get inherently more, I don't want to say selfish. Again, that's the wrong word, but you will figure that the only thing you could do is play your own game right? And so I think you're going to start to see some of this defense get worse, some of the passing go down, if things don't get better and they don't get more positive reinforcement soon. So even though that's hard to come by, let's hope that through the end of December and through early January, somehow they're able to generate some wins in the schedule, certainly against the terrible teams, the Utahs, the mediocre San Antonios, Philadelphia 76ers are not doing well. You have Detroit Pistons in there too. So, you have some hope. The Blazers need to snag all of those wins and then get a couple surprise ones, and the spirits might rise again. Otherwise, boy, it's going to be tough. And I guess the only thing you might hope in that is that some of this individual play that probably comes from it might benefit the same guards we say are suffering now. And at least somebody might step up and start scoring 20 and hitting a reasonable percentage from the field and taking over games to give you hope for next year. But we're a long way from that. And of course, there are many games to be played. Oh boy, I don't know. I cringe as I'm going forward, but we'll watch and analyze them all, and there's always going to be new things to talk about. That's why we're here. That's why you're here. We certainly thank you for being here. Also, we want to remind you, look on the site for the post for Blazers Edge Night. If you like this podcast, if you like our voice, our analysis, or whatever, don't pay us. Pay it forward by sending kids to see a Blazers game who wouldn't otherwise be able to go. It's a wonderful charity event. It happens in March this year. And you can find on our site how to pay the Blazers Edge back and or Blazers Edge Night announced posts. And if you click through, you can find out how to purchase tickets from the Blazers to give to kids who are in need and otherwise wouldn't be able to see a game. Do that for us, and we hope your holiday season goes well, that you're able to give to that cause as well as buying stuff for other people. And again, We hope you're having a wonderful time, a better time than Portland's Guards anyway. And we hope as we ramp up toward Christmas and the New Year's that everything is bright for you. Until we talk to each other again next time, we hope that you enjoy every moment of the Blazers playing on the court and all the moments of talking about them in between.